Welcome to the Smart Connector podcast. I have a very exciting guest for you today, Gideon Lask. Welcome, Gideon.
Very exciting, I'm not sure, but very excited, Jane, certainly.
So Gideon is a tech CEO and founder of BioPower, and he's really passionate about selling things online. And you've been doing this for a really long time, haven't you, Gideon?
I've been in digital and involved with e-commerce, for a scary amount of time now, probably entering my third decade of it, which is terrifying. But it's been a very happy journey with lots of adventures and lots of different chapters.
Yeah, and there have been so many changes in that time because, of course, tech is a really, really, really fast-moving industry, isn't it? So many changes happening all the time. Must be hard to keep up.
It's very exciting to keep up with it and how people use technology and what it enables different brands and businesses to do. And indeed, if you look at my journey, I went from being part of many brands, either setting up businesses or helping other businesses run their digital divisions, to now owning and running a software business, a software which is licensed by brands and businesses to do what they do better. So it's been exciting to see different sides to it, using technology myself to sell better, but now helping other people sell better using my technology.
Yes. So let's get into what BioPower actually does, because it is a really, really interesting business, isn't it? And quite different.
I like to think so, Jane. What we do today is very different to what I thought we were going to do when I set the business up 10 years ago. Let's start with what we do today. So we're a customer acquisition platform.
Mm-hmm.
We are licensed by typically very large organizations like T-Mobile or Vodafone or HSBC to help them with their customer acquisition, primarily around refer a friend. So hopefully you and all your listeners have at least encountered a refer a friend program before. You know, the kind of thing where Uber would say, hey, Jane, get your friends to take a ride and you're going to get free rides. We don't power the Uber program. I'd like to, but hopefully you've seen other programs and we are the guys behind the scenes powering those. So that's what we do today. But what we began with was very, very different. Do you want to hear about that?
Yeah, definitely.
So I was at Universal Music about 10 years ago or so, and I was beginning to see how social was starting to change the way that we acquire customers. The internet before social was very much a one-to-one thing. It was a brand talking to a customer. But social enabled the customers to talk to each other. So my job at Universal Music was something called direct to consumer. And the idea was that the record labels wanted to, on behalf of the artists, sell direct to the fan, cutting out the retailer. So how do you do that? How do you build an audience of consumers when you're not a retail brand? Well, the answer is you start with your super fan. So if this was on the behalf of the Rolling Stones, you'd start with the Rolling Stones super fan. And you'd ask him or her what they wanted, from grandiose products to amazing experiences. And you'd say, listen, if you bring in enough of your friends, maybe casual fans, maybe other super fans, we will create it. We'll make it happen. And that's exactly what we did on behalf of Lady Gaga, FIBA, the Rolling Stones. We created these amazing experiences and packs, engaged with the super fan, and they would go out and bring us all of their friends and other fans, and we would sell doing that. It was word of mouth gone digital, which was incredibly exciting. And that got me thinking, Jane, that I could potentially use that new form of engagement to win consumers to a new proposition. And so what I had in my mind, Jane, was something called co-buying, which was a premise that first appeared around 2000. And the idea was that consumers could group together to drive prices down. The more customers that engaged with a deal or an offer, the lower the price would get dynamically in steps. So if 100 consumers decided they wanted to shop, maybe the price was £1,000. If 10,000 consumers wanted to shop, maybe it could come down to £500, so on and so forth. So that mechanism is called co-buying. So
Oh,
10 years ago, I decided to leave the sexiness and the safety of Universal Music, do all the cliches of remortgaging my house, and to build a business based around co-buying. And that's where the name came from, Jane, BuyaPower, because we were taking power away from the retailer and giving it to the buyer.
yeah.
So I had a wonderful year spending all that money from the remortgage, sitting with six developers, a product person, getting this idea out of my head, and making it an absolute reality. And it was a wonderful year, just that opportunity to be creative and work with some very talented people to make my vision a reality. And that's where we began, this idea of buyer power, passing power to the buyer, co-buying. And we launched after about a year, and we had an amazing couple of years selling products from perfumes and makeup to television and toys and services and experiences. And it was wonderful. There was no doubt that consumers loved this way of buying, that the technology worked, the brand resonated. But that's when we faced our first challenge, Jane, and that was actually securing the products to sell, because no one wanted to sell to BioPower because we depreciated your price point. Makes perfect sense. Why would you give me your product if all I was going to do was drop the price from X to Y? And that was the first of many amazing challenges that presented themselves during the last 10 years. But that called for a proper pivot.
Yeah, I was going to say, Gideon, did you not think about that when you began? I mean, sometimes we don't think about these things, do we? It's just like, oh, yeah, of course, that might be a stumbling block.
I think, Jane, what I've learned is you can't predict everything. And that the key thing is remaining very agile, very adaptive, to have your radar tuned in to everything that's happening around you and be flexible and ready to change. And fortuitously for us, we'd been speaking to lots of brands about getting their products. And what started to happen was, it was slightly negative in that they were saying, no, BioPower can't have the products. But they started leaning in and saying, but we love what you're doing. We love your technology. We love this co-buying thing. Could we license your technology to have it within our website and our apps? And at that point, we thought, God, yeah, brilliant. And that was our pivot towards becoming a B2B SaaS business. So moving away from this idea of being a retailer in our own right to being B2B SaaS. And that defined really the next 3 years. So 2 years of being a retailer, and then 3 years of being B2B SaaS, providing co-buying solutions to the likes of Tesco's and EE and Robbie Williams. So there was still kind of some music thread going through that as well.
We might know some of the same people there. But anyway, never mind. We'll get into that later. Okay.
So that was amazing. But then at the end of 3 years, we looked back and we realized, wow, dozens and dozens of really cool clients paying us good money to license the technology. But two things were evident. It was hard to sell. Of our business at that point, we were maybe 25 people, but only really I could sell it. And it's always easy for the founder to sell something, because you wave your hands around and you've got that kind of founder thing about you, the passion.
Yeah.
But it was very hard to scale it. It was hard for any other salespeople to sell it. What we also found was that people would license our technology to run a campaign for 3 or 6 months, but then they wouldn't run it again because it had been done and the novelty was over. And that's not a sustainable business model, of course.
Yes.
So we hadn't achieved product market fit. And so at that 5-year point, I remember a wonderful man who still works with me today. Hello, Tim. A guy called Tim Simmons, brilliant guy. came to him and he said, listen, kids, let's just be honest. And Tim was trying to sell this stuff. He said, only you can sell it. And even when you sell it, they turn it off after 6 months. But he wasn't saying it in a negative way because he had an idea.
Uh-huh.
And some of those very same clients were coming to us and they were saying, listen, have you seen what Uber and Dropbox and PayPal are doing? It's this thing called Refer a Friend. And in 2015-ish, Refer a Friend was still quite new. He said, they've all been coming to me, Gideon, and saying that they want to refer a friend solution. And they feel that our technology is very close to that. And indeed, it was very similar because it's all about a customer engaging with their network, bringing people in, and as people shop, that triggering rewards and other things. And so, Tim, it was a moment of genius. And in 2015, we decided to double down, have our second pivot. I think there've only been those two, but had to have our second pivot and say, you know what, B2B SaaS, yes. Co-buying, no. Refer a friend, yes. So we re-engineered the platform. We re-engineered the whole team. And as I said, we doubled down with Refer a Friend. And I'm grateful for Tim and happy to say that that's where we found our product market fit. And things began growing gangbusters. So the last 6, 7 years now have been all about Refer a Friend. That doesn't mean there hasn't been change and flex to what we do, but there've been no more pivots. We've found our calling and we found our lane.
That is such a fascinating story. And the thing that I love about it, well, of course, apart from your frankness and honesty in terms of sharing all of that story, Gideon, is just how much it reflects the typical journey of an entrepreneur, in that we all think that we've got something really exciting that's going to work at the beginning. And it's so common for these, well, market feedback to change the direction and change the strategy. And it's great that you've been through these different iterations and then you've got to the point where something has just worked, and then people really want it. And then it's, as you said, it's exploded. And that's very, very inspirational, I think, for many other founders and entrepreneurs out there. It's amazing that you've got to this point. So congratulations.
It's an important lesson. I mean, it's not a unique one, right? You pick up any textbook about starting a business and it says remain agile, launch your minimum viable product and learn and keep flexing and iterating until you find product market fit. Alas, as is often the way, especially with an entrepreneur, you need to learn your own lessons and make your own mistakes. The reason that, what is the stat? Something like 90% of startups go bust within a year is that people invest all of their money in that first firm vision and they just try and build it to completeness and perfection. They launch it and then they realize, God damn, this isn't quite right. This hasn't resonated, but they're out of money and they're out of time. Mm-hmm. And so, yes, people say we're building a minimum viable product, but make sure you really are in every element of your business. Make sure it is minimum. Make sure your radar's tuned in. Make sure you're learning from what's happening and give yourself enough time and space and resource that you can iterate and learn. For us, in our 10-year history, it took to year 5 to find product market fit. And we're only around today because we managed our time and our resources to allow us to get to that year 5 mark. But also to realize that you might find your product market fit, but even then, even when you're in your lane and you're motoring, there's going to be waves that hit you from every side that you have to understand why they're hitting you. For us, realizing that we weren't the only people to have actually cottoned on to this refer a friend thing. And lo and behold, there are quite a few competitors in our space, and you have to figure out what your specialism is. You either become the big bear dominating the space, or you carve out a specialist area. I hesitate to use the term niche because it's not niche, it's big. But what are you going to become famous for? And whilst I've had lots of kind of sexy brand experience in my past, we bizarrely decided to focus on, it's not bizarre, but we bizarrely decided to focus on large regulated industries. So telecoms, banking, utilities, energy. So far from sexy, but brilliant for us as a business because it allowed us to develop a core competence in serving these organizations. Organizations with complex workflows and systems, serious demands from a security perspective, very demanding teams from what they get from us in terms of strategy and client success and client service. So we have over-invested in being able to engage very, very well with this kind of organization. If you're a small retailer, you know what? We're not right for you. We're far too expensive and far too complex. But if you're a bank, you know what? We will do a beautiful dance with you and lead you to success. So realizing you can't be all things to all men is so important.
Definitely.
Understanding what your niche and calling is, and then again, doubling down and over-investing in that kind of customer is critical. And that's, again, led to, I guess, our successes over the last 5 years since we decided to focus on Refer a Friend.
Wow, that again, some amazing nuggets in there, Gideon. Really, really valuable. And I just love this idea of you focusing in on this regulated marketplace, because I'm sure that just the extent of the regulation would be quite intimidating and off-putting to some of the players that are your rivals. And maybe that's where you saw that opportunity, is it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think learning very early on, we began in retail because that was my background and where my network was. And again, a message to any kind of budding startup founder is kind of, you use your network, sell into your network, begin where you have an advantage, but recognize whether you've got staying power within that vertical, because it's very easy to sign deals. It's very hard to keep customers. So you need to get your tentacles into these organizations, and you can only do that by delivering real value. Within retail, it's a far simpler place to operate. They want lean, they want light integration, they want cheap. None of those things are conducive to getting your tentacles deep in. Whereas, as I said, with a bank or a large telco, what they want is complex, deep, long-lasting relationships, all of which lead to us as a SaaS organization having more lucrative long-term relationships.
Yes, and that all-important recurring revenue, which, as you said, without that, it's very difficult to scale, isn't it?
It absolutely is. Demonstrating value, offering flexibility, the whole concept of land and expand. You begin doing a deal within a large group, and then another department or a sister brand sees the value, and then you start growing, and suddenly you're delivering real value into that organization, as opposed to being just a small SaaS provider offering one point solution in a bit part of the organization. So we've absolutely recognized the need to do that, to land and expand and to deliver real value. We live in a world where our clients are looking for fewer SaaS providers delivering more. And so that really has driven us as an organization to understand our clients and to recognize that there are other ways that they want to utilize our software. So yes, we began in B2C, but we're now doing lots in B2B and helping out HR departments with employee marketing and things. I think we distill what we do down to its core essence, which is our client, a middleman, which is often their customer, and then a third-party audience that we'd like to help them get access to. So in Refer a Friend, that's the brand, the customer, and the customer's friends. But that can be applied, for example, to brand partnerships. So EE, very large customer of ours, they work very closely with Samsung, the handset manufacturer, and Samsung has customers. EE wants to put offers to Samsung's customers. Lo and
Mm.
behold, our software is perfect for that because it's designed for a brand, the middleman, and the audience. So I think keeping our radar tuned to what our existing clients want to do with our technology and facilitating that has been the kernel of our success in terms of long-term partnerships. And now we've been working with EE and BT for, 5 years now.
Yeah.
We work across their whole organization.
Yeah. So, what would you say are the challenges of working specifically for these regulated clients? Do you have to be very tightly regulated yourself, or do you have to keep up to date with all the changes in their markets, or do you rely on them to tell you what they need from you and what the changes are? Just interested to know.
Well, I think all of the above. So yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. We're ISO 27001 compliant. We treat the security and data privacy, of course, very, very highly. But yes, we need to be tuned into changes in people's industries, the emergence of an evolution of pay as you go, just because we're talking about telcos there, people moving away from having long-term contracts and what that means for the average lifetime value of a customer. So yeah, you have to become very geeky about changes in these industries. But that's kind of cool. That gives us not just a technology business to know and understand, but all these different industries. And people like you engaging. I like talking to my clients at T-Mobile because they teach me about all this kind of stuff. So yeah, there's a base foundation of our business needing to have the credentials to work in those spaces. There's
Hmm.
then the need to have an appetite of knowledge and understanding about what's going on. But also then there's the ability or need to remain agile and flexible to those changes and have a technology platform that can also flex. And that, I think, has been so important. We've got an amazing CTO, Zubair Khan, and he's architected a platform which is enabled to take us through those pivots of co-buying into RAF and now beyond that. So yes, from a product perspective, recognizing that nothing should ever be set in stone, but you need a foundation that's strong enough that you can build upon it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I love that. Now, the smart connector is all about connection. It's all about people and so on as well. So I think what's really interesting about your business is that at the heart of it is relationships, really, isn't it? So I really, really love that business model of refer a friend, and very, very powerful and very enabled really by what's happening in tech today. What do you think the future of this tech-enabled relationship stuff is? How do you see it evolving in the next 5 to 10 years, for example, Gideon?
Um, 5 to 10 years, who knows, Jane? But
Right.
two to three.
Yeah.
I think peer recommendation is the most trusted form of marketing, and
Hmm.
actually every other form of marketing really is not trusted. Advertising just is not trusted anymore. So how does peer-to-peer advocacy and marketing evolve beyond refer a friend? Well, I've touched a bit upon that there, talking about brand partnerships there with
Hmm.
Samsung and EE. So there, I have a relationship with EE as my handset provider, and they are bringing a offer to me from a trusted brand. That's an evolution. Influencer marketing, in its more kind of authentic guise. Let's stick with that handset piece. I might go to a particular specialist influencer who's an expert in handsets because I want to know a review of the new iPhone that's coming out. So I'm going to find specialist peers out there, not necessarily my friends, but specialists whose opinions that I trust. So I think this whole word of mouth piece will grow and grow and grow, but it won't just be customers to their friends. It will be influencers to their audiences. It will be review websites to their visitors. It will be brands to their partners. All of this, I think, if you aggregate all of that together, you know what? That's going to give search and social a run for its money. So 2 to 3 to maybe 5 to 10 years out, I'd like to say that this whole word of mouth, peer to peer advocacy piece will be as important as search and social. And they will each have a third, and a third of new customer acquisition.
Yeah, that's really, really powerful. And when you think about how fast that's changed in the last 10 years, even, it's just been incredible, hasn't it? Because I'm thinking about my industry, for example, I'm thinking about things like entrepreneurial education and property education and so on. And there was a time when it was really not possible to just go somewhere and get all those peer reviews and those peer comments, and as a result there was a lot more what I call scarcity and manipulation marketing, and you just can't get away with that these days, can you?
You really can't. And hey, listen, in the early days of e-commerce, for me, it was all about kind of email and blasting out emails and trying to get people. No one reads email anymore, so you have to reinvent. And if no one trusts search or social, then there has to be space for something new. And what I'm trying to do is create a platform that enables you to do all of that new stuff, that aggregates together influencer and brand partner and affiliate and refer a friend into a single platform. Because I
Mm.
do believe that fewer tools doing more things is critical to our success, but also our clients' success too.
Yeah, that sounds really good because people love shortcuts, don't they? They don't want to be presented with too many choices or too much complexity or have to go here, there, and everywhere. They just, if they can go just to one place and get it, they will, won't they?
Absolutely. We see that in our everyday working life, don't we? And indeed our
Yes.
non-working lives. We don't want to have 50 different platforms to log into, hence
No.
Google now dominating everything, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I truly believe that's very important for us going forward.
Yes, yes. So what about your team, Gideon? How has your team grown and changed in that time since you started the business?
I've got about, so there are maybe nudging 60 of us now, and a third have been here forever, like literally since the very beginning.
Yeah.
A third have been around for 2 to 3 years, and then a third have actually joined in the last year.
Yeah.
So it's really it's interesting to see those different pools of people. Um, what's happening now is we are getting an incredible influx of very bright, um, hungry people from all over the world. And this has been one of the best changes for me around the output from kind of all the knock on of COVID, because we're now very much a remote first business. We don't have to employ people just in London and just in Vancouver, which is where our two offices are. We now have two people in Bogota in Colombia.
Mm.
Not
Very,
because
very
they're in
good.
Bogota, Colombia, but just because they are brilliant, awesome, young, dynamic people who are the best people for the job. And
Yeah.
because we are flexible in where they are, we've allowed that to happen. So our 60 people now, I think, are in 17 different countries, um, which is wonderful, and it adds a new zest of excitement to our everyday lives. To talk to someone that's just been surfing on the beach. And is now coming to do their day's job when we're beginning to kind of end our day here in London. So it's a real injection of excitement for me. Just this new young talent from all around the world. Very, very exciting. And that's no discredit to everyone that's been in the business forever, guys. If you're listening, you're no less exciting. We love you too.
Yeah, but it is really genuinely a global talent marketplace, isn't it, these days? And that so many people are tapping into, as you said, that talent from overseas. And of course, they can be cheaper because their cost of living is lower. And the quality of the education is often exceptional, just as it is in this country for people who reach out and engage with it. So it's amazing that you've kind of grasped that by both hands. So yeah, really interesting. Do you ever find that language is a barrier, communication or cultural concerns when you're working with all these people from around the world? I mean, obviously there's time zones as well.
Yes.
So any challenges in that?
Well, so time zones, yes. Languages, no. I mean, English is our primary language in terms of within Biopower. We very deliberately have hired people with language skills to engage our clients in local languages, and people who understand cultural differences in terms of the way that we have to sell and service people. But English is the primary language. Time zones, yeah, is really hard, and we certainly haven't cracked it. To have enough time where the whole company overlaps is really challenging. So we have a lot of people on West Coast time, so that's 8 hours behind where I am.
Hmm.
We've got a lot on mainland Europe, which is then an hour ahead. We love East Coast time zone because it kind of works with everyone, and so we're targeting. That's why Bogota is fabulous for us. Toronto, we love. Mexico City, we love. So it's a consideration, absolutely, both in terms of having enough people that can be together on a call. Our all hands once a week, our big Zoom call is beautiful. We get to have everyone on that, and it works a treat. But we're now increasingly signing up clients in Australia and New Zealand,
Hmm.
and we're going to have to put people on the ground there, and that's a whole different time zone to consider. And it will be
Yeah.
very hard to have people from our East Coast time zone and then New Zealand on. But hey, challenges which keep it all fun, Jane. Um, I look back upon the last 10 years. Every year presents a whole new set of challenges. And who'd have thunk it 10 years ago that I'd be worrying about time zones?
Yeah.
And who knows what the challenge will be next year? But no, having people globally in this business is just awesome. And I can't wait to travel a little bit more so I can actually see them face to face.
Yeah. So, any plans? Obviously we're coming out of lockdown right now in this episode, and people are starting to travel. It's not that easy, but if and when all the restrictions are lifted, would you, for example, get them all together? Would you plan to get them together and have a whole company event? Do you think that's something that people in your situation should or could do, or do you think it's just a bit impractical to do something like that?
Aspirationally, yes, I absolutely want to do that. I think my CFO might be slightly less keen. The airfares are bringing everyone in from 17 countries. So we are going to try and do it next year. What we are certainly going to begin to do this year, COVID permitting, is bring more of the teams together. We've already started to do that in the UK, but we've got a loose plan for September to bring some people in from continental Europe into London, because I think it's critical, and I can't tell you how much I've just enjoyed over recent months seeing my colleagues again, meeting people that we've had to hire over Zoom, going for a beer, having a lunch. Sitting down and having creative working sessions. There are some things that just cannot be replicated virtually and have to be done physically. And also, it's just a critical part of the cocktail for me of running a business. I love seeing my colleagues face to face.
Yeah.
I missed it so much.
Yeah. And I can tell that you are a big people person just because you've built a business on connection, and because you're clearly a very passionate and enthusiastic and people driven person. So I'm sure that for you that is very rewarding. Yeah, I mean it's the
I've,
same for
I've,
me. I
I've,
just yeah.
I've missed it, Jane, and I've missed seeing our clients as well.
Hmm.
We'd love seeing people face to face when we sold, and certainly when they became clients. And it will be interesting to see how much of that actually comes back. We used to go to loads of different shows and exhibitions, and
Hmm.
will that become a thing? So the end of our financial year has just gone, so we're in the midst of a budgeting process now, and trying to figure out travel and expenses. Kind of, what do you put in for that line when who knows what we're going to be able to do or what we're
Yeah.
able to do?
Yes, yes, exactly. And if we are to go into another lockdown, any ideas of how to make things more fun with the online communications, or how to inject that same sense of community and just fun into your business, if, given those restrictions? So,
Yeah,
what
I
have
mean,
you tried to do, if anything?
I don't think we've done anything particularly unique. I think recognizing things like at the start of every meeting, don't just hop into business and afford yourselves the 5-10 minutes of just chat that you'd do if you were sitting down with someone. So
Yes.
forcing oneself to do that, over communicating, um, being polite on Slack, and realizing you can't just say, I need this or I want this, because you wouldn't do that in person, would you? So recognizing that there are some bad habits that come out of working remotely via these tools, and going over the top to, yes, be personable, be polite, have the chat, reinforce the personal relationship thing. um, we do our Zoom all hands on a Thursday. We have win and eat. So one of my greatest pleasures was taking the guys out for dinners or lunches, and so I still do that, but remotely, to the winner of our kind of weekly competition. Uh,
Oh,
which is nice. So people get to go out and spend money on maybe a sushi dinner or whatever. But someone organises the competition, someone wins the competition, and they get dinner on me. So lots
oh,
of
that's
these little
nice.
things that we throw in. There are gaming evenings and stuff like that. Um, Nothing replicates doing it in person, but I think it's important to be just trying to do it. Is really important. And I guess it also informs the nature of the people that we're hiring into the business too. Um, you can't have lots of people who just want to sit back. You've got to have a decent blend of people who are very happy to lean in and be charismatic, and fun and happy to kind of garner a gaming evening together. So yeah, recognizing that the blend of personalities is really, really important too.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's really important for sure. Yeah, so what I'd also like to ask you about, Gideon, is investments. So I know you bootstrapped the business in the beginning, which is
Yeah.
a really brave and bold thing to do, but it is something that a lot of startups do. So congratulations for taking that risk and getting it off the ground. But have you ever taken outside investment to
Yeah,
build your business?
yep, we have. We've probably, yeah, we've brought in a few million over the last 10 years. What I guess is different about our investment profile is we haven't really brought in institutional money. We
Hmm.
haven't done the VC dance or the PE dance as such. We've stuck to EIS investors, and some high net worth investors who've been long time supporters of the business. Um, I haven't taken that other journey, so it's very hard for me to say whether this is better or any worse. But I am very, very lucky to have had a hugely supportive shareholder base who have followed their investments and have supported me at the right moments and challenged me at the right moments, but have trusted me, I think, in my vision for where the business has gone, through good and bad times, right? Because there are highs and lows, and as shareholders, it's your job to challenge the CEO. Maybe when things are going well, support them when things are going bad. So yeah, that's a slightly unusual path we've taken. That's not necessarily a forever path. We did our first M&A 2 years ago when we bought a company in Canada that did what we did, and that gave us our presence in North America. We'll be doing more M&A as we move into next year, and that requires some deeper pockets.
Yeah.
But when we engage with private equity, it means we'll be engaging from a position of strength,
Yep.
needing their money not to survive, but actually to unlock some potential that M&A will bring.
Yeah, which is a huge difference because I've actually interviewed somebody on the podcast a couple of weeks ago who's a specialist in M&A. And of course, you can exit rich, and that's the name of her book, or you can really reach out because you're in a challenging situation and you need to survive. And it's always, of course, preferable to be in a strong position, isn't it, when it comes to investors?
Yeah, absolutely. And I can't say enough about my investor base, in particular, kind of the two directors of the business. It's been a long working relationship I've had with them both now, five years, and I couldn't have done it without them. And it's easy when you think about your team to think about the guys that you work with day in, day out, who are employees of BioPower, but they're as much a part of the team as is anything. Guys that you can call and say, I don't know. And that's important to be able to do that. And yet, certainly in the early days of Biopower, I'd have been scared to do that because I thought that, no, you want your shareholders to think you're brilliant and you're perfect and you don't have questions and you don't make mistakes. To have a relationship where I can be very open and honest with them has been crucial, I think, to the last 5 years.
Yeah, yeah. So let's move on to talking about you personally, Gideon. So, what are are you a family man? Are you married? What's your sort of situation,
I have three.
personally?
I have three kids, amazing kids. Rafi, Lucas, Cassius, 14, 10, and 8, who are amazing and challenging. I have a divorce, as many startup founders do,
Ah, yes,
sadly.
that's right.
God, yeah. When that all went down, it was horrible for everyone. But
Oh,
you do some reading about it, and gosh, the propensity for startup guys and girls to get divorced is very, very high, which
very high.
kind of makes sense. And yeah, I guess Biopower is the baby that kind of created a lot of kind of chaos in one's personal life, but I'm now remarried to an amazing lady who has a lot of tolerance, and an equal love and passion for her business. And so it all kind of balances quite well. But yeah,
Ah,
life is complex and demanding, but I've learned about myself that I like complex and demanding, Jane. And it makes me happy. So I guess I will always have that layer within my life.
yeah, yeah. And what about any particular habits that you hold particularly dear to you? I mean, how do you start and end your day, for example? And is there anything that you would like to recommend to other founders, for example, when they're going through those challenging early days?
Sure. Again, probably nothing dramatically new that you haven't all read about, but I think exercise and nutrition have been key to me surviving what have been at times really, really demanding periods of my life. So yeah, every day begins with some quite intense exercise. I watch what I eat. That's not to say I don't balance all that goodness with the downside of probably drinking a bit too much and all that kind of stuff. Um, but also investing in travel and holidays and downtimes, realizing that you never really turn off, and so you need to turn up the volume of something else to distract you. God, I remember one of the happiest moments of my life was my 40th birthday a few years ago now, and I wanted to do something, I guess, in life affirming and soul defining. We went whitewater rafting down the Grand Canyon for 2 whole weeks, and
Oh,
phones don't work there, so there's no email, there's no contact, so you're forced to cut off, and you're in this alien-like landscape where you actually only get the sun for a few hours of the day because you're in a canyon. Uh,
right.
and my God, that was such an important thing to do, to give you context, to refresh, to reboot. And it's probably only using that term now, the old cliche of when things are broke, what do you do with your computer? You turn them off and you reboot. How do you reboot your brain? That rebooted my brain. And in
Ah,
doing that, I've recognized that periodically you've got to do something like that to turn off, to get out of the day to day, not just for your own sanity, but because it gives you a different perspective on your business and on your life and what's required.
Yes, yes. And it's so important just to step back at times and to be able to do that, because otherwise you do get a bit stale, don't you?
You do get a bit stale. So yeah, that was good. So everyone head to the Grand Canyon immediately. That's essential. But going back to something I said earlier about 10 years of business feeling like 10 chapters of a book, each year being so different. I think making sure that each year is different, by the people that you hire, the challenges you set yourself on. If I think some of our chapters have been moving from startup to scale up, embracing globalization, recognizing that we now needed to bring in some real specialists from bigger companies to teach us kind of how to take this next leg of the journey.
Mm.
Each of those drives you forward and engages you and entertains you, and just drives the positivity in, which is required to balance some of the negativity that comes with the stress and some of the demanding hours and stuff.
Yeah, well, Gideon, all I can say is that it's been such a fascinating interview. I have so enjoyed talking to you today, and I'm sure that our viewers and listeners will absolutely love this interview as well. So I just wanted to thank you for your time and to wish you every success with the next phase of Biopower and with whatever the future holds for you. Thank you so much for joining
Thank
us.
you, Jane. I've really enjoyed it. Take care. Be well.